Yeah, just to give a short introduction about myself. So I work for sales and strategy planning team, and I lead for North America's commercial segment. And yeah, so that's the short introduction about myself. And I've been in Dell for like 7 years. So I joined Dell when I was like 15. So yeah, here is where I am, and here is the agenda screen that we are looking at, and these are the topics that we are planning to cover on today's class, right? So this will just give you a very basic introduction to the SQL and what a SQL is all about and why do we need a SQL when we have a fantastic Excel with us or any other tool like Tableau or Power BI. So what is that? Why do we need actually a SQL, MS SQL especially, right? So yeah, let's jump start into it. So is there any questions that you wanted to ask before we start, or am I audible? Someone is harping, is anyone talking?
Yes,
Yes, no.
Balaji, you are audible, but I think there
Okay.
is Leonard. He's not able to hear you, I guess.
Okay. So,
And Vasant Kumar, also
uh-huh,
there.
uh-huh. So, am I audible now?
You
Balaji.
are.
Hey, hi. Hello. Are people able to hear?
Yes.
Vasant Kumar. Vasant Kumar is not able to hear. Okay. Other people are able to confirm that I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yes, you
So
are,
if
Balaji.
possible, you guys can find a meeting room. That would be great. Okay, fine. So this is all the agenda that we have for today, right? So let me just give you a brief of like why do we actually need a SQL and why not we stay back with Excel itself, right? So the SQL is designed for a different purpose or like little better purpose than Excel what it can handle, right? So for example, Excel, it can handle maybe, 10 lakh row line items. That is like a huge set of data in one single sheet. And Excel has its own limitations and its own capabilities. Like, maybe Excel can build a chart real quick. Or it can help you to build a pivot table, interactive, a chart. Whereas SQL directly might not be able to create it, but connecting SQL to a tool, it can obviously make it, right? And again, across Dell, all of the teams, they do use anything and everything we manage with the data and all is like highly on MS SQL thing. And SQL is just a common way to refer structured query language. It's like high level language, okay? So most of the people have a doubt like, what is this SQL? And there is something called as object oriented programming. For example, like C or C++, that is different from a SQL. Okay, so when we say that this is a high level language, what does it means is that, hey, anyone out of a college, right, or anyone who's a business guy like me, or anyone can just like that start learning SQL and they can just start typing in, right, to get or understand the data what you're looking at. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. It's like a English, a plain and simple English, right? So you don't have to learn something so different, or like, you don't have to be a developer to understand a SQL database. Okay. So that's why we are interested in learning SQL. And basically, yes, this is one of the most primary skill set that is needed to be as an analyst, or in anything and everything that has to be done in the data world. So it is super important for us to learn at least one programming language, right? So that's MS SQL. So by the way, if you learn MS SQL, so by the way, there are multiple SQLs. So out of that, what we are going to learn is MS SQL, like Microsoft SQL, right? So for example, there is something else, which is again MySQL, MySQL they used to call it as, right? So that is different, and Oracle's SQL is a little different. And again, all of this will have a little bit of similar syntax, but they are not completely same in terms of like architecture. For example, HANA, right? So that is again a SQL. I mean, you can write a SQL on top of HANA, which is a SAP product, but it's not going to be the exact syntax that you're going to use it for a MS SQL, right? There is going to be a little bit of difference, right? So this is what we are going to look at, and these are the things that you're going to cover for today. So does everyone knows now or understands what is a SQL and how that is different from Excel? Yeah, Sudarshan. So is everyone able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, Balaji.
Awesome, great.
Yes, Balaji.
So yeah, you guys got the why do we learn SQL or what is the difference between that and the Excel, right? Okay, fine. So now let's just look at the basic structure of a SQL query, right? So how does a ideal SQL query looks like, and what are the major blocks or subdivisions within a SQL that you can find, right? So this is the major blocks, or this is how you can at a very high level, if you're looking at a SQL query, this is how you can look at it as, right, a complete select statement if you have written. So this is how you can split that into multiple blocks and understand that as a SQL. This is a complete SQL query, by the way, right, in a diagrammatic way. So on a SQL generally, right, so we used to write a select statement. So select statement is where you have a list of columns that you're interested in, right? So let's take an example here. We'll open the Excel so that we can easily get that connected real quick. Just a sec. Right, guys. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a plain and simple Excel that we have. Let's say name and employee ID that we have. So let's say we have N1 and we have like 10 employees, right? And then the employee ID is gonna be like 101 and all the way down there, right? So let's assume that this is a table that you have it in your SQL. Okay, so generally, yeah, obviously these are the horizontal part, which is like your rows, and this is considered as a column, right? And this is a simple table, right? So when you're trying to get this kind of a result in SQL, you will have to write a command to the SQL to tell that, hey, I know there is something called as employee table. Let's assume the name for this table is like employee table, right? And I need the entire set of data that is in the table, and these are the two columns that I have. And how do we command the SQL database to get that result is what we're going to look at it, right? So coming back to the structure, right? So to do this, we will write a select query, right? So to read the data out of this entire table, we'll be writing a select statement, right? And this is how the structure of a general select statement will look like. Okay. First, it starts with a select command. So select is just the normal English word that we have, right? So you're going to select something out of something, right? So, and again, in that there are two things, right? So you're gonna obviously, after you write a select statement, you're gonna list n number of fields that you are interested in, right? So in that, there are two different ways. You can select a star from a table, right? Or you can select specific columns that you want, right? When you write a star, it means all. So in SQL, when you write a select star, means it is nothing but you're selecting all of the fields in that particular table. Okay. And you can, another thing that is there is like, you just wanted a distinct result out of it. So there is something called as a distinct clause here. So these are the two variants in within the select statement part, right? So first keyword in the SQL that you're gonna use is the select statement. So basically you will write any select statement like this, and this is how the structure will look like. And it starts with a select keyword, which is a reserved keyword for SQL, and you can't use this for a column or a table name. Like, you can't have a table name like select. Okay, so this is a reserved keyword. So these are the columns or the way that you wanted to see the data, and it starts from a from clause, right? And it has a table name next to the from clause. And next is the joining part where you have, let's say, table A, table B. So let's say this is your table A, and let's assume you have another table here, right? And this is going to be your salary table. And let's assume that, like, or let's say, those, right? So this is gonna be your salary. So let's assume that you're gonna join these two tables using names as a common, like the identifier, and for that you will bring in the second table, the salary table here, and you will have the on clause right here on what basis do you want to join those two tables, right? And then there is a where clause, which is nothing but just a filter. Don't be worried, guys. So when you're looking in the example, it'll be much easier for you to understand. This is just to give you an outline of what we are going to look at, right? So in the where clause, you're just gonna add a filter here. Okay. So let's say you might not be interested in looking at the employee whose salary is less than maybe like 2,500, right? So you can add that as a filter in the where clause. And then here at the last, we have a group by. So when you're doing a aggregate function, you're gonna use the group by clause in it. And finally, you have having clause here. So for now, let me not explain. Okay, fine. To just to give you a brief about having clause, let's say you have aggregate functions written here. Let's say a count or a sum or some kind of a aggregate function. You can add a filter on top of it by using a having clause. Okay, so that's the last part of it. And then at last, you can add a order by clause. Okay, so basically this is how a SQL query will look like. Okay, so let's look at how does yeah. So any questions on that? Any questions on this part? Like how does a SQL query looks? Just a basic skeletal view of a SQL select statement. Any questions on that, guys? I mean, don't worry if you don't understand. Okay, so obviously when you're looking into the example, you will understand much better. So, are people listening or just they have already fallen asleep?
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
Bala.
we are
Yeah.
we are following.
You
Thanks,
can
thanks,
proceed.
thanks. Cool. Thanks for letting me know that,
Maybe
guys.
after seeing examples, it will be
Uh-huh.
much clear.
Yeah, that would
So
be
you can
better. Yeah.
proceed. Hmm.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, what is the next part that we had in the agenda is that, yeah, the data types, obviously. So, guys, just imagine if you have ever learned, I mean, let's assume that you have a vessel at home, okay? So, there are different types of vessels, right? So I assume even huge vessel which can hold maybe let's say a milk vessel, right? So the milk vessel is dedicated to be poured with the milk or maybe any kind of liquid in it, right? Or a water bottle. I would like to call that as a vessel. So that is designed or like kind of a vessel that is specially made for like pouring liquid in it and storing it, right? So assume the variable is nothing different than a vessel. Okay. So let's say, for example, right, you have a huge tiffin box or a small tiffin box or whatsoever. So the kind of food that you can put in, it's completely dependent on the size of the tiffin box or the size of the vessel, right? So you can directly relate between a data type to a variable to a vessel, right? So you're getting it? So for example, let's assume that you have rice to be cooked. So you're gonna select a vessel or a cooker where you're gonna put that rice in it and start, you know, switching on the oven or the normal stove that you have. So basically, a tumbler is a vessel or a variable that can hold some water or a tea in it, right? So as simple as that, right? So that's how I would like to simplify or try to explain what does a data type means, right? So, connecting it to the SQL world from the milk or the water or the rice, here instead of the milk, water, and rice, we are gonna deal with numbers, date time kind of a data type, or character string. Number is just gonna be the 1, 2, 3 part, and the date is gonna be like today's date is 15th October 2019. And let's say string is nothing but maybe a person's name is a string or an email address is a string, right? And string can be of any size, and it can be like maybe for example the name can't be more than 32 digits unless and until you have a friend like mine. One of my friend, he has like a name that is of 35 characters or something, and he had to fill in extra boxes and put his extra alphabets next to it. So let's say if there is a Facebook comment, there is no restriction like a person can only express his thoughts in a limited set, right? So those kind of string is called as a end text, right? So there are different things or a different type of data types that you can use in SQL. Okay. And yeah, there is a binary where the value will be like either 1 or 0 or true or false. And then, yeah, there is something called miscellaneous. So let's say if it is a NoSQL or let's say a data that you wanted to represent in NoSQL format, or let's say, for example, XPath. So then you will use this JSON or XML kind of a thing, right? So let's take an example for numeric. So let's say for numeric, what could be a good example? Let's say the quantity of product getting sold, is that numeric, right?
Yes.
Right? And then date and time, maybe let's say if it is an employee table and we have joining dates for every single employee, right? So that is going to be date and time, right? And then character or a string, right? So character or a string, let's take for the character. Let's say, for example, it's gonna be, you can define that character as char in SQL, and you can call that out like how many characters for that you can define that. So for example, male or female, it can be represented like M or F, right? In that case, the character size is going to be just one by default, right? And again, varchar, let's say you can define it like maybe 800, 500, like based on the size of the string that you're planning to get it in that, right? And text is almost like in text, but again, it will not. In text has a little extra power, right? So in text can support like special characters in it, and text cannot, for a greater extent at least, right? And double digit characters can be supported in text. So yeah, binary, yeah, you know that zero and ones and the gate or gate if you're from EC background and you're sitting in Dell. So mm. And yeah, and then we can obviously save images, video, or like GIF kind of a thing in SQL, right? And then miscellaneous, like I said, JSON. So let's say if you wanted to see what is this miscellaneous kind of a thing, let me pull this example here. So this is a plain and simple uh, page that you're looking at, and let's say if you go on inspect element, so you're gonna see all of this like this looks like some kind of a bypass surgery done on the data. So this is something that you can save in SQL, and you can call that like XML, right? So yeah, these are the different data types, guys. So any questions? So see, keep interacting with me. Okay, I have a feel like I'm talking to myself, or like no one is actively nodding or listening.
Balaji, I have a
Yeah,
question.
yeah, please.
How do you pronounce your friend's name with the 35 character?
Yeah, I will call that name. It's like Bhumi
Yeah,
Venkata Hari Pratap Reddy. Okay, so it's
yeah.
pretty difficult to like you need some kind of a, yeah, you need to practice that name, man.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect. Thanks.
thanks, thanks.
Okay,
Okay, cool.
Bala,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
is
yeah.
one word next to binary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is var binary.
Mm-hmm.
So, what could be the possible example for this
Mm,
one?
yeah, what I understand is like variable binary, but I had never used it though.
Because I have seen it for the first time, and I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think that we
yeah.
use it
No, no, don't
here.
go exactly by the slides, okay? So trust me, just before 10 minutes I prepared these slides. So these are not
Oh,
custom made to meet this, but yeah. And trust me, there are like a lot of data types. So if you go to the link that I've
which
already
we do
sent,
not use.
yeah, which we don't use. And trust me, we're not gonna be a developer here, right? So we're gonna look at a business problem and we're gonna try solving that. So if you go here, it can on SQL, so data type, yeah. So if you go here, there are plenty of different data types available here, right? And out of this, I felt these would make sense, right? And yeah, okay. Yeah, you guys can look at these. Maybe I'm not gonna waste a lot of time in the data type kind of a thing. The actual things that I would be interested in like writing a query or maybe making some business sense out of a data that we have at our end, right? So yeah, that's all I had on the data type part. So maybe we can look at the aggregation functions, right? If you guys are good with the data type part. And yeah, we can look at the example when we are creating a table, which will happen in another 5-10 minutes. So like where are these data types and why we are supposed to be bothered about this and all, right? So yeah. So I think we can go with the aggregate function next. Okay,
Yeah, Balaji.
great. Okay,
Yes.
Okay,
awesome.
Balaji.
So let's look at the aggregate functions, right? So anything and everything that you see, so you would have seen maybe if you're walking around on the floor, so there would have been a kind of like kind of a thing or on the wall that you would have seen, like anything that can be tracked, that can be measured. So for you to measure, you need aggregates, aggregate functions. Like let's say it can be like how many calls came into the queue today, or how many collections happened today, right? And how many employees are there in the floor today, or like how many people are reporting to XYZ manager. All of that is a count, right? And let's say that is one of the aggregate function that we will be frequently using, right? And again, sum, obviously, like, how much is the sales that has been made, how much is the margin that is made, how much quantity that is sold, all of that is going to be a sum kind of a thing, right? And average, yeah, let's say year on year, you wanted to see how much is the average growth, or let's say year on year on a particular segment of business. Let's say, for example, let it be commercial, enterprise, or CSB. How much is the average that you've made in that particular every single year or whatsoever, the last 5 years average? So you're going to use the average function. And then the max and the min. So let's say a single table has multiple records for an employee ID, right? And let's assume that this employee has been in Dell for like 10 years, and every time he has got promoted, he has a max and min date in it, right? So from what time till what time he is reported, right? Or let's say there is a sales deal that got opened, and for the same sales deal, there would be multiple row line items, and you wanted to know when did the sales deal started, which will be like minimum of the date, and when this deal got ended, so that will be like maximum of the same column, right? So that way you can use these aggregate functions. Okay,
Okay, Balaji.
awesome. So let's jump into the SQL next. So this is how the SSMS will look like when you're opening, right? And this is how the plain SSMS will look like. So if you don't know how to open a SSMS, so you just can like press Windows R and then type in SSMS, right? And then there will be an error message like this. I mean, I was just saying, sorry about that. But SSMS you can type in here, and this is how it will look like, and you can open this up. Okay. And at the time when you're about to start, this is how the page will look like, and you can connect it to your local system. So this is my local system's service tag. You can give it this way, or you can just give a dot here and then connect, right? So if you give a dot, it means that you are connected to the local system, okay? Or you can type in like local and then try connecting it, or you can say local host and then connect it. So both are same, okay? Or let's say if you're interested in,
Yes.
uh,
Bala,
yeah,
there is one person wants to know how to do that again. How to open
okay, yeah.
SSMS.
Sure, 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 sure.
Yes.
So you can just, click on the
Jensen.
start button and then say SSMS. So SSMS is SQL Server Management Studio, right? You need to install MS SQL. Yes. So if you don't have a MS SQL in your system, at least have SSMS in your system, that you can get it from the software center. But again, that is just a suite. You need a SQL server to connect it to it. So get in touch with any of the data person in your team, or like anyone on the floor who has a SQL server, and you can just install this suite from the software center, right? But you need a server to get it connected. Okay, so maybe I will find some way if you guys need to install it, but it is a lengthy 1 hour installation. Okay, so you can search like Microsoft SQL and you will get it right like this. Okay, so this is something that will give you this part, but you need a SQL server to connect. Okay, so that you will have to check with some data person in your team, or maybe if you can install MS SQL in your local system, then you can connect it. Okay. Okay, there is a person who has got an error. Okay, so by default, your
I,
system doesn't comes with SSMS, J Jason, right, George? So you will have to install that. Yep. Um, Okay. Any questions? Any other questions?
Balaji, I think most of the time, if we are getting error while installing the
Yeah, yeah, that
package,
is true.
it's
That is really very
because
true.
no, it's reason being there are already few instances which
Yeah,
is
that is true.
downloaded.
That is true. So you
So
should create
most of
another
the time,
instance. Yeah,
or you can get in touch with the IT people. There
that
is a
is true.
dedicated team.
Hmm.
They will help you to install it completely. They'll remove.
Oh. Hmm.
Because Balaji, I was just trying it. I see there are two options
Hmm.
on our software center.
Hmm.
So one is for Windows 7 and Windows 10. I think we have to choose Windows 10
Oh
and
yeah,
also
please,
run the
yeah.
current updates.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So if you search like SQL, good point, Sujay, right? So please install the latest one. Like this is 18 and this is 17. So please go with the 18, right? And yeah, it should be backward compatible. It shouldn't be an issue. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome. So if you want to, yeah, like Varsha said, please get in touch with the IT, and once if you do it wrong, and then it might lead to like further complexities in it, right? And again, there are few of the online compilers also, but when I checked, it wasn't that handy though. SQL Online compiler. So you can try using some of the online compilers. But if you really wanted to get this thing done, and you wanted to learn this, then I would definitely recommend you to install a SQL Server on your system. And obviously, yes, your system will become a little slow after you install. Okay. Okay, fine. So I think, yeah, one more thing that I wanted to show you is like you can either give a dot here and connect it if you have your local system SQL installed, or you can give a local host, type in like local host here, and then you can connect to the same server, or you can open the command prompt here and then forgetting the local host's name. Uh, so host name. So this will give you, let me just clear this off. Name. So if you type in, sorry guys, I'm not able to zoom this though. So host name, you just have to type it and say enter, and this will give you a service tag. So you can just copy that service tag and put it here and then just connect it. So this, all the three are the same. Okay, I'm just connecting it with different name. Okay, so let's assume that you have access to a different server, and you can type that in like this, and you can just like that connect it. Okay, so when you connect it to a different server, let's just connect. So once if it is connected, it is gonna come down. It's gonna reflect right here.
And Bala, one more thing,
Hmm.
that server
Yeah, yeah.
name, while you are installing the SQL
Hmm.
server on your local machine,
Hmm.
you have to mention your service tag or the computer name there. Then only you can connect to your laptop.
That's true. That's true.
You
Yeah.
have to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a lengthy process though. The installation
Mm.
part is a lengthy process though.
Yes,
Yeah,
one
maybe
hour,
if,
1 hour, minimum
yeah,
1 hour will take.
that's really true, Varsha. Yeah, right. Cool. So let's assume that now we had connected to two different servers. Remember, so this is my local server. All the three are in three different names, and this is another server, a grid server, a production server that we have in our IT system. And just for the sake of connecting it to different servers and showing, I just connected it and showed. I'm gonna disconnect all of this and connect it to my local host, and that's just a dot. And this is how the data, I mean, this is how the Explorer window, this is called as the Object Explorer window, right? And this is your SQL editor part, right? If you need one, you can just press like Control N, and this will bring up this new, like, tab here. So I'm just gonna close that right away. And this is how the Explorer tab will look like. And this will tell you which active database that you have connected to. By default, you will land on the master if you're the admin, and you don't have you have a super access to the server. And you can also like click that drop down and change the particular thing that you wanted to get connected to, right? Okay, fine. This is the part where we have all of this sub part within the SQL, right? So let's say you have first the database will be there. So if you click on that, you will see a list of databases that are there. And if you have just now clicked created the SQL server, you will get to see like just by default one, which will be in the sample database, system database. Yeah, these are the default databases. that are there in the system, but you won't see anything here. You can create one, and that will be listed here. Okay. And that is about the database, which is the first one. Okay. And the second one, or the second part of this particular SQL Explorer, is the security. So if you look at this, it has basically the logins. Let's say in this server, I haven't given a login for anyone except for myself. But let's say if you actually connect it to any other server, so obviously that will have uh, like list of login, who and all has access to that and all of that, right? You can modify the what level of access that they wanted to do. Let's say a user can look at only a specific set of data that they are interested in, or you can give them access to read only, or only modify or create database, or you can handle that completely in this folder. Okay, security folder. And yeah, server objects. So basically, this would be really handy if you wanted to write a query that will involve multiple servers in a single select statement. So you can use this link server. So in my case, I had linked the local server to OS Earth. There is a server called Earth, and I had just linked that server to this. And yeah, that's about the link server part. And the endpoint, I had never used backup devices. Yeah, and yeah, then yeah. Okay, there is an error. I don't know why. Okay, fine. So let's say the SQL Server agent, right? So here is where you can schedule any jobs. So for example, if you wanted to incrementally pull a data from server A to your local server, so you can create that as a SQL job and schedule that, right? And you can also I mean, you can look at how many times did the job run, and if it has failed or if it has run successfully, you can see all of that. So this is the typical server, like how does a server looks when you click on the Explorer part, right? Let me just disconnect it from here. Yeah, and this is all we have on the SQL Explorer site. Okay. Any questions, guys, on the SQL Explorer? Just the basics, right?
No.
No questions? Okay, George. Thanks for confirming. Yeah.
I think since Balaji, since people have
Mm-hmm.
they are not using SQL in the system,
Mm-hmm.
probably next week they can check and get back with us if they
Mm-hmm.
have any
Mm-hmm.
doubt.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe I think, yeah, that's right, Alagiri, right? Maybe most of you are new for SQL, and one way, like I said, you can maybe open this kind of a online compiler so that you don't have to install anything, or you can go to the software center and install this management studio and get in touch with any of the data guy in your team. Maybe I think Arun is the person in finance, or if let's say, for example, don't bug them up, but again, that depends on what is the like kind of limitations in that server, like how many employees can log in, and all of those comes into picture. And then the data security is also another big concern. So just check with them and see if you can get an access. Then check if you can get an access to that, and you can practice it, right? Okay, fine. So this is all we had it on the Object Explorer. So there is a cool auto hide part where you can hide it so that you can have a lot of room for typing in your code. Okay. Can we then start writing queries?
Yes, Bala, we can
Awesome.
proceed.
Great. Just a second, guys. Great. So yeah, if you are the owner of this server, right? So this is my local system, and I can do whatever I want. So I'm the complete owner of this particular machine, so I can create my database. So how to create a database, right? So it's pretty simple. So all you have to do is just create database and say the database name, for example, training. Shit, 1 minute, guys. I am in DB02, if you notice that, right? So I wasn't in my local machine. So if you need to know or need to check which server it is,
You're in
so currently, yeah,
DB02 right now.
yeah, that's right. My bad. So I had to just click on this and then create a new sheet here. And now if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So if I just type in database and then say training, it will automatically create a new sheet. So Yep, this will work. Why? Because I'm connected to my local machine, and if you now go here and then click on this, then you will see something called as training, right? It is created, right? Awesome. So if you don't have enough permission on the server, so you will not be able to create it. Okay. So if you see here, it is still in the master, and if you wanted to switch that to training, you can click on this, and now you are in the training. This one, like the database, what you're gonna write, all of the query is gonna be into the training database, or you can use a code to do that. You can say use training, right? And then just run this. Either of the way you can, like, let's say if you are in by default, which one will you be in? Master, right? So now you are in master, you can use this use training command so that it changes to training. Or if you like if you are a GUI person, then please go ahead and select training here, right? So this is how we just now created a database, by the way, and we learned another command like use, and then you given the database name, and automatically this will move from whatever the current database that you are using in to the specific data types that database that you're calling in. Okay. Any doubt in creating database and switching between databases?
No.
No? Okay. Great, guys. So first thing that you guys have learned is like how to create a database and like, first uh, SQL statement. Awesome. So yeah,
You can
let's.
show the object to explore, right? So
Mhm. Yeah, it's right here. And by default, yeah, thanks for calling that out. Is that Allegri? Yeah, thanks, man.
yes, but
Yeah.
no, I'm not able to see that in my system.
Oh, sorry. Uh, will this solve it, or was that a different network issue kind of a thing? Is this what you wanted to see?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So inside a database, these are the things are like, sub part within a database. Okay. So yeah, within a database, obviously we are interested in looking at what tables are stored. So this will have the tables once if you start creating. So this will have tables in it, right? And then there is something called as database diagram. So you can create one after you have tables in it, like how to connect between databases, or I mean, how to connect between tables and all. You can graphically define that in the database table, right? And there are some of the system tables in this, and these are by default created along with the database when it is getting created in this code, right? And yeah, you can use something called as views. So views are real cool stuff in SQL. So what does a view means is like, it's not going to occupy a physical memory in your hard drive, but it is something that it can hold a SQL select statement in it. So let's say, for example, you have database base tables, and that has actual data in it. So view is just the imaginary layer on top of the table, right? So you can write a complex select statement in it, and you can just create a view out of it. And once if you have a view in it, so then you can give a read access to the view alone, so that the people who are writing a query don't have to be given the read access to the actual table. Okay. So view is just an imaginary layer. So for example, people from analytics, or people who have joined from like, the back, they might know something called as a cube, or let's say calc view from HANA. So just imagine the calc view, and cube is nothing but just a view in MS SQL. Okay. So you can write aggregated functions, complicated SQLs, and store that as view. And all you have to do is just share that view name to your stakeholders or the business partner, and they can just write a select statement or use a Excel to connect it to a SQL table, and learn the data what they wanted to see it. Okay. So that is about the view. And I have no idea about this. Synonyms, this is where you will have, yeah, programmability. This is super important. Let's say any kind of a store procedure that you wanted to run or save, uh, or you wanted to, like, let's say you have a select statement and you're going to change the parameter every time, right? And you wanted to automate something out of it. So you can write it as a store procedure, and you can pass parameters to that. And whenever you write a user-defined store procedure, it gets saved here. Okay, and functions are also somewhat similar to that. But by the way, guys, do you know what does a function means?
Set of
Hmm.
statement
instructions.
which we can, yes, which we can
Hmm.
call again and again. We
Yeah,
don't have to write the same, like how we have
right.
macros in
Yeah,
Excel. The same
yeah,
way we can use
yeah,
function.
yeah. That's true. That's true. So, functions is nothing but like you have this VLOOKUP, which is just a function. So you're gonna write, let's say, for example, this one. You're gonna get, let's say, the employee ID in the second column, and you're getting an error. 1 minute. The hell? Okay. 2, 0. Yeah. So you are getting the employee ID here. So it's just a VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP is just a function that is predefined within Excel. The same way SQL has some of the predefined functions in it, and you can also write a user-defined function, and you can call that function with passing these kind of parameters to that. So for example, VLOOKUP has all of these parameters and you can pass the values to it and to produce the result. So basically function is something that you give a set of instruction to the computer with the variables so that it produces a result. So function always returns some value. Okay. Or even if the function is not returning a value, that is considered as a value that, function return null value, right? Null is a value, right? And yeah, all of your sum and default ones will be saved in this aggregate functions, right? And yeah, database, that's all about the database and the security part, like who are the users and what kind of a role they have in your system, right? You can give them a read access, write access, whatever, right? So yeah, these are the basic, like, the internal side of a database, what knowledge is there. Okay, don't get yourself confused a lot. And trust me, day in and day out, we don't use all of this. Okay, just a good to know information about these things. But what we are interested is in like writing queries or making some sense out of the data, like I always keep saying, right? So yeah, so if people are comfortable, I think we can start creating a table. Just now we saw like how to create a database, right? And if you guys are good with this, maybe I can teach you how to drop a database, and then we will start looking at like how to create a table and then drop a table, right? So any questions on how to create database, or like, whatever we spoke in this part, or like how to switch between the databases? If you don't have any questions, then we can start with how to create a table with the data types, different data types. Yep. Any questions, guys?
No, Maharaj, you can go
No
ahead.
questions? Awesome.
Good so far,
Awesome.
thanks.
Yeah, awesome. Great. So creating a table is very simple in SQL, okay? And all you have to do is just say the magical words like create table and then give a table name like prod table, product table, right? And you start. This is how you start create table syntax, okay? So create, and then what do you want to create? It's a table, and give a table name, which would make sense, right? And then you just give a open parenthesis and a close parenthesis. Okay. And here is where we are going to type all of the column names, like column name and then data type, right? And the size, and then let's say this is column 1 and then column 2 and data type. So you give it like, maybe any number of columns that you want, and then we run the statement. Okay, so this is how the create table syntax looks. Okay, so let's actually give a valid syntax here. So that is just a snippet, prod name, and we'll call this as varchar 100, right? And then next is list price varchar, or let me use integer. Okay, and then let's say I'm gonna say next. So I have a product name. Let's say, for example, the thing is gonna be like, maybe here we have a product at Dell, which is like Inspiron XPS, right? And that every single model will have a list price or price, right? And then we're gonna say whether that particular product is available or not. So for this, I'm just gonna say, or let's say, yeah, just let this be a char, like char 4, right? And then there is gonna be a date. So updated date maybe, and the data type is gonna be date. Okay, and then at last I'm gonna say comment, and I'm gonna make it as in text. Okay, so let me reduce the screen size a little bit so that I can put a lot of things on the screen. Okay, so this is a simple typical create table syntax that we have. Okay, if I run this, we will see a new object getting populated here. So you can just click on this and refresh. So we don't have the table right now, so we're gonna create it. So to execute this code, all you have to do is just click on this execute or just press F5. So you're just gonna press that F5. I just pressed F5 and it says uh, completed successfully, right? So basically this is your messaging window, right? So basically major three parts for this particular application. So one is going to be your explorer, and then this is your editor part, and this is your message, like what command you wrote and how did it get executed. Was it a failure or is it a success? All of that will be shown in this message, and then there is another one that will pop up right here, and this will be pushed here. Like, you know, it'll give you the result in a grid, like a table. Okay. Okay, fine. So now we had just run this, and if you click on this and then just click on this refresh, now you can see that product table has been created. Okay. So you can drag and drop this, and if you drag and drop, this is how the table will look like. Database object, short form DBO, right? I hate that. I'm just deleting it, right? And now we had created a create table. I mean, we have used the create table to create a table. Okay. Any questions on how to create a table? We have just now created a table. So I just clicked on the table to expand, and these are the columns that I have, right? And within each and every column, it'll tell like what data type that we've entered, right? And by the way, guys, so you can go and edit this as well. Okay, like modify, and then modify the data type here itself, like, you know, whatever that you wanted to modify it as. Par binary, I'd never used that though. You can do that and then, like, you know, save product table. So one who's not comfortable with writing a select statement or a create table kind of a syntax, they can go with that. Okay, or you can even right click on this and then create a table. So you can say like emp, and then you can select a data type, like, you know, maybe varchar, varchar, yeah, and then just save table one. I'm just gonna save this as table, right? Say okay. And if you just refresh it here, yeah, emp table got created. So there are two ways to create a table. One is using the GUI, or you can use like, you know, the editor window to write it. So yeah, I'm kind of like, I've got used to this. So I'm not a GUI guy when it comes to this one. So yeah, any questions on how to create a table or how to create a database? No questions at all. So by end of the session, I'm going to conduct a slip test for all of you. Okay. Hello.
Balaji, one question.
Yeah.
How to edit the
How to
creator
edit?
table?
Yeah. So you have this here, right? So you can just right click on this and then you can go to the design, right? I just right clicked on it, right? And then you just have to create like design, right? And then this will bring out this, right? Or the third way of doing this would be like, let's say you have this, you just have to right click on this and then script table as, then you can say like create to, and then you can click on this. Basically what will this do if I click on this is like, basically it'll show me the exact same like, you know, the code version of writing this. So let me just click on that and show you, right? So if you do this, so this is a machine generated create table version of it. So it'll just help you to bring out a command so you don't have to, you know, if you're extreme lazy person like me, So you can use that feature to create this select or create table kind of a thing, right? So not only that, you can even do that for like, so this is to create, okay? So you can write it for a drop. So this will SQL will do the job for you, right? So you can drop the table, it'll generate the SQL statement for that, right? Or you can even like do it for a select statement on it, right? Select to, this will create a new table, so the syntax will be a little different. So yeah, you can select particular like columns from that. So if you do that for this, it would it would look a little different. Select to, yeah, right. So see this. So this is a machine generated code. It will bring out a code, and you can start typing like where, and then say expression one, right? And then order by whatsoever. You remember about the table, guys, where we had this equal structure. So this is the select part, and you have the list of columns. And if you wanted to see only distinct, you can write it with, yeah, like this. Right. And if you just wanted to select all the columns, just write like select star, right? That's it. Yeah. Any questions, guys? So basically, if you wanted to edit a table, you can go with the GUI method by like design, or like, you can select one of these script table tasks and make the changes, but be cautious when you're making any change, you're not deleting any data in it, right? Or you can even add a column. For example, let's say in prod table, right? So let's say I'm just gonna make this new, or let me go back to my old, let me close this off, close this. No, I need this. So let's assume that I wanted to add one more column to this, and the table is already created, right? So there is something called alter statement. Copy paste this, right? Add, let's say column B, I'm just gonna add, and then the varchar, this is the data type, right? And I'm saying by default it can be null. So if I run this, now what have happened is that we have added a column B to that. Okay. So let's say if you now like select star from this empty table, nothing will be there in the data, but yeah, you can have this part. So basically it brought out all of the list of columns, and if you see there is a column B which got added just because we wrote this alt statement to that alter table. And you can basically, what we are trying to say is that this is to, and by the way, you can write a comment by doing this, right? This is how the comment, you can comment a SQL code, right? How to create a database in MS SQL. So if you run this along with your select statement, it won't affect. Basically, this part is, oh, that is because I've already created a database. Let's assume you're running this way. So this will not stop your code. Basically, we have a comment over there. Okay. Uh, or if you just wanted to comment just one single line, you can type this and like comment that. So as soon as it is commented, the color of this particular line will go into green. Okay. Any questions on how to comment or how to create table, or like how to alter existing table by adding a new column? I know that I haven't come to like how to drop database or how to drop a table or how to delete a column in a particular table, but yeah, I just wanted to be like giving you the giving you guys on how to create stuff, and then we'll go for the destroyer part. No questions at all? Okay.
Balaji, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So once we have created the database and with a given table names with given data types, you have inserted some data and you have like 10 rows of it.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So if you want to alter, I mean, change the data types, can you do it?
I wouldn't actually, suggest that way. So what I would do is like select star into kind of a thing, make modifications that you wanted to do, or create data types that you wanted to do in that cast function, and then put it into a table so that you can replicate it, right? And that again depends on from what data type that you are trying to switch from what, right? So for example, let's say if there is a varchar and you wanted to change that to char, I doubt that. Or the ideal way is to design the table before you're going to use it, or you can plan it well, or just can create a mirror replica of that table. I'll show that when we are making that, okay? But yeah,
Sure.
this is what I wanted to show you guys, right? So first, we'll create the table, we'll add a column to that, and now let's try inserting a value into this table, okay? So right now we have just an empty table right here, right? So let's try adding a value into it. So there is something called insert command, and insert into, let's say, just copy paste this, and then you say values, and then all you had to do is just give in the data, okay? So let's look at the data column names that we have here, okay? What are the columns that we have here? Product name. So product name, what data type that we declared? It is a varchar 100. So it can handle numbers as well as text in it. So I'm going to insert text, which is like product one, right? And the second column that I'm going to use is the list price, which again is going to be integer. So let me just type in maybe 100. And then available or not available, I'm just going to say yes, this product is available, or I can say no. And note that this is a char, smaller than a varchar, and the size is just 4 characters. And then I'm just gonna get a date. So let me insert the current date by using a function called as get date, right? And then I can type in a lengthy sentence here. Yes, this product is okay. So let's say any kind of a comment. It's just gonna be a end text. It can be a lengthy comment. Okay. Yeah, so if you look at it, I don't need this column B for now, so I'm gonna drop that column before I just try inserting this record, and before doing that. So let me type in another alt table command to drop that specific column. Column B. So if I run this column B will disappear. Okay, so it is command completed successfully. Let me just try refreshing this. See, ta-da, it's gone. Okay. So yeah, let me just try inserting the data by running this command. This will be the first row line item that we're gonna look into it. And let's now run now it says like one row affected, which means the data has got into the table and it's been inserted. Let's write a select statement on it. Yeah, there you go. Here you have the data. Okay. Okay, that's only changing it here. Okay. I hope you guys are able to see here, right?
Yes, Bala.
Okay, awesome. Cool. So now let us insert few more data to the same table. Maybe we will change the part. This one like P2, P3, P4, and then let's give us N. End of life. And yes, this product is sold in maybe EMC, not in Dell. Maybe we'll say no EOL from let's say VMware. Okay, so let's say so even before that, let me try telling what is like how to use a delete statement. Delete from product table, right? Oops, product table. And if I do this, the one and only row that we had, it got deleted, but don't worry, we will again push that data back. So the same statement that I have it on top. So I'm selecting multiple insert into statements at the same time, and I'm gonna run this. Okay, so it says like multiple one row affected kind of a thing. If you see, there are 4 rows that we tried inserting, and all of the 4 got into the database. Any questions, guys?
Yeah, Balaji, I have a question.
Yeah, yeah.
Forgive my ignorance about this SQL, but
No issues. Yeah.
you have created a table. I just want to see where is the end result. I mean, say,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
is this
So that
table
we're gonna,
created?
yeah. So this table is created in the training database, which is right here, and the product table is right here. And these are the columns. And when you write a select statement here, then it brings out the data that we inserted using these commands.
Okay.
So this is the product name P1, P2, P3, P4, and then the list price that I forgot to change, and the available yes or no, and then the date, and then the commit.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, does that answer your question, George?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yep. So you guys are good?
Yes.
Awesome. So now let's look at like how to drop a database then. Drop database. Say training. So I'm just gonna execute this. Currently in use. Okay. So I can't do that. So why? Because I'm currently using this thing. So I had to switch to a different database and then say, now let's see if it works. Hmm. It's executing, guys. Ideally speaking, it shouldn't take this much of time, but yeah, this is how you drop a database. Cannot drop training this currently in use. Why? Because there are
I
active
think you are
windows
still
right
no.
here.
You are still in the local
That's true. That's true. I'm
server.
in the local. I wanted to be in
Mhm.
this. There is no doubt in that. But yeah, 1 minute, guys. No. Okay. That's true. Okay. Hmm. The other things that I opened, right? You remember I right clicked on it and then like design event. So that was connecting to this training earlier, and that did not allow me to drop the database. Okay. So now if you just refresh this server, right? So you will not find the database like training, and it would have been missing, right? And we might have to just recreate it. Okay. So yeah, that's all I had it for this week. Let me just refresh this once again. And yeah, it's missing. So we can again just recreate it, right? It got created, right? And then we can create this table also, right? And then these two are like alt statements to just, add or remove a column in it, right? And then this is the data that I'm going to insert. And here is the select statement of it. And we are looking at the data. Okay. Sorry, I know that I took a little extra 6 minutes, but yeah, I think I had covered what I wanted to cover for the first class, for the first training class that I had. Okay. Any questions on this, guys?
No, not as of now. Probably when we do it practically.
Yeah.
But in this,
Yeah, that's
but
understood. Yeah, agreed. So
when
I'm
we,
just gonna write a mail, like, for you guys to just practice this part, right? And whenever you're writing a drop statement, please be extremely cautious. Please be extremely cautious when you're deleting a table also. Deleting a table is also fairly simple. Yeah, we'll cover that up in the next class, but yeah. And I'll put this in an email so that you guys can practice it. Okay. So if any questions, you can catch up offline. You can ping me. Okay.
yeah, thanks,
Great,
brother.
guys. Thanks for joining. Have a great evening then. Yeah. Thank
Thanks
you
for
all,
this.
guys. Yeah, thanks,
Hello.
guys. Thank you all. Yeah, bye-bye. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you all. Yeah, thanks, Sriram. Thank you.
Thanks, Balaji.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. Yeah, thanks. Have a great day. Yeah. Yep. Thanks, Praveen. Thanks, Paul. Yeah.